As with many great works of music, literature, or indeed art in general, some of the most endearing hymns ever written were born out of times of great personal tragedy for the men and women who wrote them. There may be no greater example of this than Horatio Spafford's It Is Well With My Soul. A partner in a law firm in Chicago, Spafford invested heavily in real estate in the downtown Chicago area, and by 1871 was living a comfortable life with his wife Anna and their 4 daughters. He was a prominent lawyer, successful investor, and an elder in the Presbyterian Church. However, the first taste of tragedy was soon to befall the family. It came by way of the Great Chicago Fire, which tore through the city between October 8th and 10th of 1871. The fire claimed roughly 300 lives, rendered 100,000 residents homeless, and destroyed about a third of the city, including many of Spafford's investments. Despite their own financial ruin, Horatio and Anna spent much of the next 2 years trying to help others rebuild their lives. In 1873, the family planned to travel to Europe to join their friend the evangelist D.L. Moody, who would be preaching in England. At the last minute, however, Spafford was detained by some urgent business. Instead of postponing the whole trip, Anna and the children went on ahead with the intention that Horatio would follow as soon as possible. On November 15, 1873, they set sail from New York on the Ville d'Havre steamship. In the early hours of the 22nd of November, the Ville d'Havre collided with a Scottish clipper, the Loch Earn. The ship was almost torn in two and sunk within 12 minutes. Despite the efforts of the captain of the Loch Earn, 226 lives were lost. Among them were the 4 Spafford girls: Annie, 11, Maggie, 9, Bessie, 5, and Tanita, 2. Anna, who was found unconscious and floating on a plank of wood, later telegraphed to her husband with the now infamous words, "Saved alone." On hearing the news, Horatio left immediately to bring his grief-stricken wife home. During his crossing, he was brought to the bridge by the captain, who informed him they were passing over where his daughters had drowned. Spafford later wrote to his wife's half-sister, "On Thursday last we passed over the spot where she went down, in mid-ocean, the waters 3 miles deep. But I do not think of our dear ones there. They are safe, folded, the dear lambs." After passing over the scene of the tragedy, in the midst of his sorrow, when his whole world had truly fallen apart, Spafford focused his mind on the goodness of God and the hope that is to come at Christ's return. Drawing on the words of the Shunammite woman in 2 Kings 4:26, he penned the words to what would become his great hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." The composer and hymnist Philip Bliss later set the words to music which he named Ville d'Havre after the stricken vessel. The hymn was first published in 1876 in Bliss and Sankey's Gospel Hymns No. 2 and has since become one of the most beloved hymns the world over. It Is Well With My Soul is certainly a stirring hymn in both lyric and melody, but perhaps more than that the outworking of such great sorrow has been the source of such great comfort for so many in the midst of their own sorrows, makes this hymn a stunning example of the redemptive nature of God's work. What was meant for evil, God meant for good.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when the sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well Yes, it is well. It is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trial should come, let this blessed assurance control that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul. It is well with my soul. Yes, it is well. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious fault. My sin, not in part, but the whole. Is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. And it is well with my soul. Yes, it is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, and the clouds be rolled back as a scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend, and even though it is well with my soul, it is well my soul. Yes, it